How's it going, everyone? Next up, we have Josh Whyle, tight end out of Cincinnati, and there has been a lot of reports that the Packers have been really interested in this prospect. He currently has a 6th-round draft grade, so he is more of a later round tight end, but this draft does have a good depth of tight end. He is currently ranked 154th overall and is the 10th best tight end in this draft. As for his measurables, he comes in at 6'6" and 248 pounds, and he ran a 4.69 40-yard time, which is pretty decent for a tight end, but it's his 10-yard split where he ran a 1.62, which is very, very good, and it shows he has good explosion and acceleration. He ended up with a RAS score of 8.87, so once again, that RAS score that the Packers love, he's tested pretty high in that department. Now, for his collegiate career, he ended up playing over at Cincinnati for 4 years, and as a freshman, he played 2 games and only had 2 receptions for 51 yards. Then the following season, in his sophomore year, had played 10 games for 28 receptions and 353 yards and 6 touchdowns. Followed that up in his junior year, played 13 games, had 26 receptions, 332 yards for 6 touchdowns. Then in his senior year, played 12 games, 32 receptions, 326 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So very consistent between his sophomore and senior year. None of the years really pop out at you, but he did have pretty consistent output year to year. And to kind of also add to the context of Josh Whyle over at Cincinnati, they didn't really have the most amazing pass attack. Like, he was 3rd in receptions on the team. The leading receiver had 54 catches, and the second leading receiver had 52 catches. So he was in that 3rd, and the leading receiver had 899 yards, and the second leading receiver had 672 receiving yards. So he wasn't like he was an afterthought or they had this amazing passing attack and he just didn't produce. They didn't really have much of a passing attack when you actually break it down and look at who had the most receptions, who had the most receiving yards, and what he was probably tasked to do. He ended up 3rd. So what's to like about Josh Whyle? Well, to start off, at his time at Cincinnati, he can line up inline tight end or also play as a slot tight end. So he does have some versatility there. He has good size, once again, at 6'6", 248 pounds, and runs pretty decently. He has a long arm, so he's able to snatch balls out the air. And he has, once again, very good speed at this size. He ran a 4.69, and that 10-yard split at a 1.62 is really, really good for a man that size. When running routes, he can vary up the speeds on the routes and kind of mix it up to throw the defender off guard, and he has really good hesitation and shoulder fakes that has allowed him to get open. He is a very physical type of player, which is something I really want more out of the Packers because I feel like our physicality is not the greatest. He is more of a physical type player, which I love seeing, and I feel like the Packers need more of because I feel like we slightly lack in the physicality department, which slightly kind of annoys me at times. He has very strong hands, so he's able to catch balls and also snatch the ball away from defenders and rip it out. So he's very good at that. And he also runs with a very low pad level, which allows him to pretty much deliver some punishment instead of receiving it. So that's good to see. So some of the cons about him and why he's kind of slightly dropped towards the 6th round. For first, he is mostly a pass-catching tight end. And despite that, he needs to develop his route running. He can't run all the routes in the route tree for a tight end. And when he does run some of his routes, they're not very sharp. So he needs to get better in sharpening his route running ability and also learn how to run more routes. So that's the first part. The second part, his run blocking. It's not the greatest. Yes, he's a big tight end, but he needs to develop his footwork. He has very poor footwork, and this kind of leads to him falling off blocks and being able to anchor down and sealing off maybe the edge so a guy can go through the B gap or maintaining his position. So he needs to get better with his footwork so he can anchor down, especially if he's going to be an inline tight end. I think he could be a good complementary piece if we actually went with Darnell Washington. If we got Darnell Washington and Josh Whyle, I think we'd actually be pretty good at the tight end position because then Whyle could kind of focus on catching despite the limited stats. When you watch him play, he has good hands. Like, he is a pretty good catcher and he just needs some development like all players do. and all tight ends, they do take a couple of years, but he might be on the faster track. And when you look at his time at Cincinnati, he could still be a very good piece for Jordan Love, especially during crunch time. This guy has strong hands once again, and could be depended on during crunch time or to make a contested catch or a hard catch, especially if it's third down, or Jordan Love is maybe getting flushed out the pocket and he needs to check it down to his tight end or his running back. He could play a part in that, and he could be a good piece, especially in the later rounds. But let me know what you think down in the comments. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and as always, go Pack Go.